You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Dr. Tracy Gapin. Welcome, Doctor.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Audience, as you know, I'm always talking about health and wealth and how they go together, and I've been excited about this interview for a few weeks. When I saw it get scheduled, I put on my schedule, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump in, Doctor, give everybody just a little bit of your background. You do just kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm a recovering urologist. I like to jokingly say I spent over 27 years in a traditional healthcare system that's broken. I stepped away so that I can really build a system to help leaders have even more energy, better focus, better drive, and really live better. And I am an embodiment. I live it myself, and I've been able to transform not just my career, but my life. And so I'm here to really spread that word.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you said a lot, and I remember when I was in my 40s, Tracy, and I used to live in South Dakota, right across the border from Iowa. 2 hospitals there. South Dakota doesn't have state income tax. So where did all the doctors live? They lived in my neighborhood, right? And they went to my country club when we played golf. And they would say to me, when you get to be 50, you're not going to be able to hit that golf ball as far, your aches, your pains. I'd say, really? Gosh, well, you know what? You guys are kind of out of shape. You're really not taking care of yourself. I'm going to, I don't believe that. And, we have this perception is my point, even in the traditional medical arena where people, they just don't get it. And so talk about how you made that transition. Obviously you were trained as an MD, where's the breakdown?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there that our healthcare system is really disease care, right? It's really focused on identifying the problem, and we call it a diagnosis in medical terminology. And then what's the treatment for that diagnosis? And typically it's a drug, it's a pharmaceutical. And that's really how we're trained. And I'll almost use the word brainwashed going back to medical school. And so as doctors, we're taught, find the diagnosis, and then this is how you treat it, typically a pharmaceutical, and then you move on. And you become very siloed, very focused on just treating that one particular problem with this drug. And that's how Big Pharma has, in a sense, controlled us from the beginning. It's not that doctors have ill will or ill intent, or they're not benefiting financially from Big Pharma. We can't anymore, actually. In fact, there's laws against that. But we're trained that that's how you treat people. That's how you diagnose, or designate health. What I've recognized now is if you want to feel better, live better, lead better, our healthcare system isn't going to help you with that. It's going to be there when you have an acute crisis, when you have a heart attack, a kidney stone, a motor vehicle accident. That's where our healthcare system is really going to be able to help you. But most of the leaders I work with, they just want to feel better. They want better energy and focus, and they want to have better sex and have a better body and be able to play golf and be their best self into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. And our healthcare system is not designed for that at all.
We mentioned, and we won't mention a name, but the doctor that I saw by you, the first time I walked into his office, he said, hey, I'm 70 whatever, and my wife's 70 whatever, and we get together like bunnies. Okay, audience, so you kind of know what I'm saying. I said, I want that, right? And he looked like he was 50 years old. Now he's almost 80 now, but he still looks great.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what I want, right? But there's something that happens. I mean, when in the audience, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, investors, real estate investors, high earning docs, attorneys, etc. And you get to somewhere in your 40s. This is how it happened for me, is I went, wait a minute, you know what? I don't think I can run out of money. Well, you know what? Okay, so what's my threat? It's my health, right? I mean, I got to make sure that I'm getting world-class medical advice. And I have a world-class protocol. And so once you figure out that, and you figure out with some of the medical advancements and longevity advancements that are coming is, man, if you can just live 10, 15 more years, I always tell people I'm 60, I'm halfway, and they laugh at me. But I'm being serious. That's what I think in my head. And I believe at 80 years old, I'll still be hitting the golf ball. I'll still be playing the tips, and I'll still be lifting weights like I do now. And I'm hoping to be stronger at 80 than I am at 60. So talk about what you guys do, because, you know, looking at your website, it's so comprehensive and everything was in alignment. I rarely have like a guest where I think, okay, everything is in alignment, but peptides, hormone replacement, talk about why all these things are necessary today. And were they always necessary? Or did people just say, well, I'm 60 years old and I don't have a libido anymore. And I just, that's just the way it is. And now we're going to be roommates for the next 20 years. And hopefully I'll die in the next 10 years. I mean, where did this, yeah.
I love it, and thank you. You made a lot of great points there, and I'll just double down on this point that, you know, health span, wealth span kind of concept, and so many of the entrepreneurs, founders, executives, leaders I work with, they're so focused on building their wealth, generating revenue, and that's great, and you need to be doing that, but you also need to recognize that there's nothing that has a greater ROI than focusing on and optimizing your health. Think about how much better you can do in your business, as a parent, as a father, as a role model, as a leader in the community, when you have high energy and laser sharp focus and your body is strong and resilient and you are confident and you feel like a man or a woman who's at your peak. And so many leaders, they neglect themselves for the sake of making money and building their business and driving wealth, etc., when there's nothing more important than your health. If you have that, that's going to drive everything else. And so the first point to really emphasize is that you have to pay attention to this stuff. This stuff matters because we are slowly every day either growing or decaying. Which way do you want it? You're either anabolic and growing or you're catabolic decaying. There's no in between. And most people, I'll argue, are on the negative side because they're not focused on the things that they need to be doing. And so, yes, we'll talk a lot about hormones and peptides and all the fun, sexy stuff. And what I like to say is I'll sell you what you want, but I'm going to give you what you need. Need is focusing on sleep and your gut health and hormones and nutrition and all these key fundamentals that are so much more important than any magic peptide. That I love peptides, don't get me wrong, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But it's the fundamentals that are really going to move the needle as well.
You know, I love what you said about sleep. You know, I have this little thing that I, you know, check every day. Oh, you got the same thing, right? So, you know, it's like I look at my sleep and it's so funny because when people ask me, right? And I guess I'm in pretty good shape. So people just randomly ask me, well, what do you do? What do you eat and everything, right? And I always start them off because I'm not the professional. So like I start them off with something simple. I said, well, what's your biggest issue? Probably what I eat. And I say, okay, I agree with that. So here's what I want you to do. Just eat 200 grams of protein a day, right? Just like if they're around 200 pounds. I just say, eat 200 grams of protein a day. So this guy comes back to me. He goes away, snowbird, like a lot of these guys are down here. He comes back and he says, I lost 35 pounds just doing what you told me to do. And I said, well, why do you think you lost 35 pounds? He said, because I wasn't hungry. So I didn't just grab stuff and mindlessly feed my mouth with crap. I just like I had to get my 200 grams of protein a day. He says, what do I do next? I was like, okay, I'm not the guy, right? Like I hire the guy. I've got a trainer 4 days a week. I got 2 doctors. I got nutritionists. I got like everything. So like you ask them, hire them. But how many people do you think know where they're at? Like just that accountability is something that caught my attention. Where do you start somebody? Like you just do the blood work and say, hey, here's where you at. Here's a baseline.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I love the example you gave. And it comes down to living with intention. And it comes down to really your identity and, you know, those 5.5 inches between your ears. That makes all the difference in the world, because until you're focused and willing to commit to it, I could talk till I'm blue in the face about what you should be eating and how to get better sleep and the hormone optimization, all that kind of stuff. But it starts with the identity and the mindset piece of it. And so I think that until you shift that, it's tough to change anything else. Now, most leaders you talk to, most men or women who are successful, driven, they're going to tell you, yeah, I'm fine. I feel good. I'm okay. You know, I don't have any problems. My hormones are probably fine. And so what I always suggest is just get tested. You know, if nothing else, just get tested. Let's just see where you are. Let's look at your hormones and your blood sugar control and your gut and cortisol levels, our stress hormone. Let's just see where, I'm sure you're great. Let's see where they are. And of course, you know what's going to happen, Jim. We're going to do the test and we're going to find that there's a mess and that there's so many hidden blind spots, so many hidden issues that they don't even realize are holding them back. That's when you can start to get below the surface and start to dig in and get people just to be receptive and open to change and be willing to consider that maybe they could be even better. And until you get to that point, and nothing else really works.
I want to make sure just as you're listening to this audience, for some reason, this just popped in my head. Don't think, well, hey, Dr. Gapin's in Tampa. I'll just find somebody. You can't, this is not something your local MD can do. It's just not. What I would tell you to do is get your butt on an airplane, fly down once a year, because I'm guessing that you've got to see everybody in person once a year. But a lot of stuff can be done outside of that once you see them. But I used to fly down to Bradenton to see my doctor when I lived in South Dakota once a year, and it was the best decision I ever made. Plus, you can do it in the winter when it's cold. Uh, back to the sleep thing. I get up every morning at 4:30. I go to the gym at 5. It's my mental health too. So talk about like when you get your hormones balanced and you're getting good sleep. And I know what some of you that, especially as we get older, people say, I can't sleep as well. Yes, you can. It's a hormonal thing. When I started doing the progesterone under the tongue right before I go to bed, all of a sudden I sleep great. I mean, according to my Aura ring, I sleep really good, but I wake up, I never go, oh my gosh, I got to go to the gym. No, I love going to the gym, right? I love going to the gym, and I have a one-on-one trainer every morning. I told her I have to have the first appointment. Talk about how getting your hormones helps you sleep.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. I think it's all connected. So, for example, when your system is stressed, and I don't want to, suggest anyone out there is stressed, because everyone will deny stress doesn't affect me, right? Is it the other guy or gal? But when your system is stressed, and that could be from overtraining, from poor sleep, from hormone imbalance, from micronutrients, from gut issues, anything can be causing systemic stress. That raises our cortisol levels, our stress hormone called cortisol. What that will do is that will wake you up in the middle of the night. You go through sleep cycles. You go from REM down to light sleep, down to deep sleep, you come back up. You go through about 4 cycles a night. It's like a wave. You're going down deep in the ocean, coming back up. And when you come up close to the surface during that REM sleep, typically after the first or second cycle, typically ends up being around 2 to 3 in the morning is when a lot of people will wake up. You ever find that you wake up, you're like, I guess I got to pee, but I don't have to pee very much. But why am I up? And you're awake and you're like, what the hell? And now you can't fall back asleep and your whole night's ruined because your head came up above the surface of the water and you woke up. That's cortisol. That's stress. Now what that has done is you've got poor quality sleep. So now your system is even more stressed, raises blood sugar. You can't build muscle, can't burn fat, turns off the other hormones, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And so this is why optimizing hormones, getting good quality sleep, focusing on all the key fundamentals is so important. And good sleep begets good hormones, which begets good sleep.
I love that. My favorite steak place that I sometimes just go sit at the bar and eat. I'm a single guy, so I do go on dates there, but I like to just go and sit there. There's a doctor that comes in, he's an oncologist. And, I don't know why he says this to me, but again, people like to volunteer information to me about, hey, what they're doing in their workouts and what they're eating and stuff. And it's like, he says, you know what the number one cause of prostate cancer is? And I said, what's that? And he goes, testosterone. And I said, that is absolutely not true. He goes, are you a doctor? And I said, no, but I've read enough and I've talked to enough doctors. I think you're an oncologist, so everybody that you see has cancer, but I don't believe that at all. And so just last week or the week before, they removed that warning, right? Or that black box warning thing, because when I try to talk to people and they say, what are you doing? We're in Florida. And I'm my area is even older than all of Florida, right? Naples is they say heaven's waiting room. And there's so many people that I know, mid 50s, early 50s to whatever age, their relationships are basically roommates because they've got problems, erectile dysfunction, low libido. Their wife has problems, whatever. You probably know a better way to say this than where my head is going. And this is important. This is the last half of our lives. To your point, let you ask that, and then I'll tell you about an 80-year-old friend of mine.
I love it. So testosterone, a very common question and concern that I hear. First of all, as a urologist, I've been doing work with prostate cancer testosterone for almost 30 years now. So this is actually my zone of genius, my expertise, that I've read every research article that's out there on this topic. There are numerous studies. I have over a dozen studies that show us without question that men with low testosterone have a markedly increased risk of a major adverse cardiac event, heart attack, stroke, blood clot, and early mortality, death, cardiovascular death. Okay, no, unequivocally, low testosterone correlates with higher cardiovascular risk. And we have over a dozen studies that show us that when you replace testosterone, when you give TRT, it actually reduces that risk. Giving TRT reduces inflammation. Testosterone is a potent
Mhm.
anti-inflammatory. It improves lipids, it improves LDL. It improves blood sugar control. It improves blood pressure. It improves body composition, bone density. Of course, we have
Yeah.
the subjective improvements, quality of life, energy, focus, drive, confidence, being able to build more muscle, burn fat, all those great other benefits. But without question, Jim, you're exactly right that testosterone does not cause heart disease. And it's crazy. There were these two terrible studies back in 2012 and 2013, two very flawed. The methodology in each of these studies were terrible. One of them actually had women in the study, and this male testosterone study from the VA had women in it. But both of these studies suggested that there was an increased risk. But when we actually looked at the raw data, it showed us exactly what all the other studies showed, which is testosterone reduces risk, not increases it. And so finally, it was February 28th of this year when the FDA finally, after over a decade, moved that black box warning in testosterone for men. And then what do you know? In October of this year, they removed the black box warning for women for bioidentical hormone replacement for estrogen as well. And so finally, like, it's been over a decade now that men and women have suffered not getting the hormones that they need because of the fear that was incited by the FDA. And I'll be honest, most doctors don't understand this and they just follow like sheep what the FDA says. And these poor patients have suffered.
Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole of how government controls people and they need people to die off at a certain age and everything else. And people think I'm crazy, but I'm just telling you that's how it works. But so when you talk about like lifespan and health span and how that equals wealth span, like I have a friend who's 80. So when he does his DEXA fit, his biological age is in his 40s and it's going down in his 80s. I think he might be 80, 82. And it's lower than his son's. Now, this guy, he does it all, right? I mean, he plays tennis 7 days a week. He lifts weights 4 days a week. I mean, he's what you want to be at 80 years old. So talk about how these things, I mean, even if maybe you've let yourself go and, you drop the weight, you gain the muscle, talk about how that increases. I love what you said about increases your confidence, increases your energy. I mean, we're all energy, right? You feed off of energy that with people that you meet. And if you feel like crap, then you're going to give off crap energy.
Absolutely. And I believe that it's never too late to start. And we can measure what you're talking about there for the listener is we can measure biologic age, which means there are specific marks on our DNA, methylation patterns, but simply marks on our
Mm.
DNA that are like rings of a tree that can help us see how old or young we are biologically, not chronologically, how many birthdays have I had, but how is my body aging? And we can actually now measure the velocity of aging. So I can see like right now, this spot in time, am I actually aging faster or slower than I should to actually show that the maneuvers that we're doing or that we're employing actually make a difference. And so you're never too old to start. And I talk about the concept of 1%. And I took this from James Clear in Atomic Habits. I love that book. I love Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg as well. But James Clear talks about the 1% thing. If I could just be 1% better today, it's like compounding interest. It's going to magnify over each consecutive day. And so how can I be 1% better today at any age is going to make such a massive difference.
So, you talk a lot about, I love that. You said earlier that you used the word identity, and I like that identity even better than habits. And the reason I do is that a year and a half ago or so, I said, by the time I'm 60, I'm going to have abs, right? And I really worked on my core. I started really working on my glutes, which people say, why are you working on your glutes to get your abs? It's a long story, but trust me, it's important.
Absolutely.
And so by the time I was like 59 and a half, I had abs, right? So I said, I did it. But what I had to do was my identity was I have abs, even before I had them. Then the habits, then I just did core, like I did I did more core, more glutes, more. And all of a sudden I started to see that definition. I changed up a couple of my peptide routine. And all of a sudden, and I did like a volume day on my workouts. And all of a sudden, I started to see abs and my weight was my muscle was going up, my fat was going down a little bit. I mean, like I've always been about 207 for the last whatever amount of years. And it was like, I was like 210, but I was leaner. Right. And so, when you identify as a healthy person, then you start to act like a healthy person. And then you start to act like a healthy person, then your habits fall in line. Right. And so the only way to do that is you have to work with a doctor that is I'm just telling you, audience, man, this is like the most important thing that you're going to listen to. And this is the most important person you're going to meet. If you implement this will change your life more than anything I can tell you about how to build wealth, more than anything I can tell you how to do anything. I mean, and so talk about maybe what are people afraid of? When people come in and they talk to you, some people will say, this is expensive. It's not that expensive. I can already tell you. I know. Okay. I pay for it. It doesn't matter. I mean, first of all, it doesn't matter how much it costs to me because how much can quality of life cost?
Yeah. And, you've heard the phrase, you could pay for it now, you could pay for it later. What would you prefer? So it comes down to, investing in yourself. It comes down to, the fact that people are looking for the easy button. Give me the magic pill, the magic peptide that's going to do the trick for me so that I don't have to do any hard work, so that I could just magically lose weight with this injectable peptide, or I can magically build muscles without putting in any work. And it just doesn't work that way. The problem is when your hormones are off, or when you have systemic inflammation, or when your blood sugar control is out of whack. I don't mean diabetics. A regular person could have blood sugar issues without knowing it. When you have all these systemic issues where your body's not optimized, you don't have the drive, the motivation, the confidence. You don't have the will. You don't have the mind to want to do anything that is work. You want the easy way out because you're just not in the right state of mind. And so this is where it's a little bit of give and take, and it's a little bit of, if I can optimize your hormones and just get you sleeping well, now you're going to wake up and you're going to say, let's freaking go. And now you're going to be motivated and driven to do the right things. Now you're going to go to the grocery store on the weekend and prepare for the week by having good foods in the fridge, so that when it's time to eat, you're not going to make those bad decisions. You're going to have good quality foods there for you. You're going to be more intentional because you feel better. And so that's where I think it's a give and take, and it requires that you put it all together, that you optimize hormones as well as focus on nutrition and layer in some peptides. But there's a sequence and nuance to that. But that's where I believe, my comprehensive approach, I think that's why it works. If I just come at you with, you're going to work out 6 days a week and you're going to eat this, that people are going to say, like, F you. I can't. They're going to go down the street with magic peptides. I think it requires all of that put together.
It's funny about something that you said right there at the end. I referred somebody to the doctor down here, and he walked in and he told me this, not her, but he told me, he said, I want to look like Jim. She said, Jim's been coming here for 4 years. So like, let's just get that straight. Okay. It didn't happen overnight. It's got to go like this. And I mean, I'm flattered that he would want to look like me, but it takes time in working with the right person. So like back to nutrition, again, I'm single, but if you went in my pantry, there's nothing in my pantry that's bad food. I like potato chips watching a football game as much as anybody else. But you know what I do is I get them, I eat whatever I'm going to eat, and I throw the bag away. Like there's no residual in there. If I'm going to have pizza, there is no leftovers. It's in the trash, right? And I normally make my own pizza in my pizza oven. But when you talk about sleep and recovery, this is an area that really, really, so I want to talk about nutrition and then this recovery and sleep. But in the room right over that I could almost see here in my house by my studio is I have a recovery room. So I have a infrared red light sauna. I have a really kick-ass massage chair, and I'm in there every day. And there's something else that is when you're in there, I don't have any electronics, anything like that. It's an hour of quiet. Right. And there's something about resetting your brain with that hour of quiet every day. Talk about like, how does somebody transition their nutrition, or how do you optimize their sleep? I know those are lots of questions in there, but like those two things, let's talk about that, because again, that's something everybody can do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about sleep and recovery first. the magic for you, without you even realizing, or maybe you did realize this because you're a smart guy, but you don't build muscle in the gym, right? You're tearing down, breaking down muscle in the gym so that when you recover and sleep, you repair and you build up bigger, right? That's how you build muscle, is in the recovery phase. So many people miss that part of it. They don't recover, and sleep is a big part of that. And so when you sleep is when you build muscle. That's when growth hormone surges. That's when testosterone is produced. That's when your cells clear cellular debris, called autophagy, is the process of your body recovering itself. And when you don't give your body that time, it's like you're a race car in the red. Eventually it's going to blow, right? Eventually it can't handle that systemic stress. So for a lot of high performers I work with, they're actually in a stressed state, not logical, I'm stressed about finance or business. No, it's stressed in that they're not giving their body and system time to recover. And so I love that you bring this up. And there are a lot of great hacks out there, but I prefer to really focus on the key fundamentals of optimize sleep first. That means that you have to get at least 7, if not 7.5 hours of sleep. So if you're going to wake up at 5, for example, that means you have to be asleep by at least 10 o'clock, which means you have to be in bed by at least 9:30. Like unequivocally non-negotiable. And so for anyone out there who wants to build muscle, are you getting enough sleep? And just simply focus on, are you getting the time, the quantity, and then the quality as matters as well. So, like you mentioned earlier, are you using a wearable, some sort of device to track the quality? And you want 1 hour of deep sleep, you want 2 hours of REM sleep. You don't want it to be fragmented. You want to make sure that you're getting that good quality for recovery.
I love that. It's funny is, again, being single, if I'm seeing somebody or something, they'll text me and they'll say, like the next morning, they'll say, "Oh, you didn't respond." I'm asleep at 9 o'clock. I get up at 4:30. So I know I want 7.5 hours. I'll sit, I sit in the hot tub, like from 8 to about 8:20, and then I like lights out. I write in my gratitude journal, which just resets my brain of the things I'm grateful for the day, observations, wins for the day, whatever, nothing stressful. And then I go to sleep, and I go to sleep like that. And I wake up like that. And I do have my coffee at 4:30. I have a little bit of something in my stomach, so I like that before I work out. And then I go work out. And by 8 o'clock, my brain, my body is ready to go. And I mean, I've got so much done in those 3 hours before most people are like
Yep.
clocking in, so to speak.
Yep.
And I feel like it's not fair to them. I'm already like way beyond where they're going to be by noon. And so I love that you start with sleep, because that's when I know it. I would say, "Oh, I struggle with getting rid of that belly fat," or whatever, all this crap that you could put in your head, which isn't true. And then I started sleeping better. And all of a sudden people go, "Oh, your t-shirts are getting tighter." It's like, yeah, I'm gaining my muscle. I'm gaining muscle. I'm losing fat because I'm sleeping better. And all the workout stuff that I'm doing is now being able to kick in. So talk about, how do you work with your clients on nutrition? Because the other thing that people like to make this excuse, Doc, is this. Well, is it your way, or is it carnivore diet, or is it this or this? And I hate those fad things, man. If you can't sustain it, then don't do it.
Absolutely. So I like to come at it from a very personalized perspective, recognizing that everyone is different. And I like to say one size fails all instead of one size fits all, as kind of a phrase to make this sink in. That based on your body, you're going to do better with a certain plan versus others. That being said, there's always fundamentals. There's always key things to focus on first. And I love that you mentioned earlier about protein. If you just focus on protein first, like you said, focus on, about a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight a day. So if your ideal weight's 180, focus on 180 grams of protein a day. It's that simple. I don't believe in the 1 meal a day philosophy. I really believe in 3 meals a day is really critical. And your first meal has got to be protein first. Every meal, protein first, and then the carbs. I don't ascribe to the concept of, whether you should be doing keto or paleo or Mediterranean or vegan or whatever nonsense. It's really based on eating real quality foods and what's sustainable for you and what's ideal for your body based on your genetics, based on your physiology, your gut testing, all the testing that we do to identify what's right for you. But you have to actually enjoy it. It has to be good food that you're actually going to eat consistently, or else, it's going to be torture. You're eventually going to quit. We don't recommend diets at all. I don't recommend restriction. I recommend focusing on good quality food. And when you eat good quality protein and good quality, organic. I always push for organic. It's more expensive, but it's so worth it. And we could talk about toxins and endocrine disruptors. But you need to be focusing on organic foods. When you focus on that, there's just no room left for the junk, and you feel better. And you're going to get full when your body senses that you don't need to be eating anymore. And so, yes, there are macro ratios to be looking at. Yes, there are general caloric targets, but most of the time you do protein first, good quality foods, and that's going to take care of 90% of the challenge that you may have. A lot of those diets, people say, "Oh, but no, but I did keto diet and I lost 30 pounds." Well, in fact, what happened is what you didn't eat during that time that helped you lose weight because you're not eating the crap. And so it's
Mhm.
not that you have to focus on just eating keto or just eating carnivore or whatever. It's the real quality food, and you're eliminating the processed refined carbs and the sugar and the seed oils and all these pro-inflammatory foods. By simply doing that, it's going to make a world of difference.
Inflammation is so important. You said something about when you're eating, it's people think, well, I'll just take this shot, like you said. And I don't know the difference between trizepatide and semaglutide and all those different ones, but I don't really care because I see people that lose weight that way, and there's flab hanging off of their arms and they have no muscle mass. And I think, well, wait a minute. I've read some studies that say muscle mass is an indicator of your lifespan in like your thighs and how much muscle we have. When you think about people falling and breaking something, like you said, bone density, you're destroying that when you're taking these medications from what I just see. Like, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, but I just see people and I think, man, you look more frail than anything. And um, I, I think I'm a little worried about that. Now, if you're 300 pounds and you gotta like lose 100 pounds, okay, maybe that's the way to do it. But if you're 20 or 30 pounds overweight, like a lot of Americans are, and you just want to get healthier and stronger muscles, I believe that if you just took a slow journey of a year, you could be a totally different person in a year. So talk about when you get together with your new patients, how do you set those expectations of progress?
Yeah. So first, let me circle back and make a point on the GLP-1s, like the semaglutide and the tirzepatide. And what these are GLP-1 agonists, and what they do is they work by turning off the hunger mechanisms in your brain so you don't feel hungry. They increase satiety in the stomach so that when you eat a little bit, you feel full quicker. And they also work through two different pathways to help regulate blood sugar as well. So that's how they work. Now, our body normally produces GLP-1 in the gut. There's a cell in our gut lining that actually makes this peptide naturally. We believe that obesity may be related to decreased production of that, so that might be the cause of it. There are numerous studies that show us that these GLP-1s are actually tremendously beneficial from a cardiovascular standpoint.
Mm.
Reduce inflammation, they help with metabolic control, they help with immune function, they help with so many other functions that there's actually potentially some longevity benefits to these GLP-1s. So that goes against, well, wait, what about all these people who are talking about losing muscle mass in the faces and all that? And you're absolutely right. What we're seeing is that if you're going to use these peptides, which is a big if, you must focus on optimal protein intake, if not supratherapeutic, and you must focus on consistent, regular, heavy strength training. Those are a must.
Uh,
If you don't do those, then yes, you will lose muscle mass as well, and then you're actually losing the benefit of those completely. And so that's the nuance where there's real abuse of these peptides, overuse, not understand the context and the nuance. And again, this goes back to, I believe, Jim, that a lot of people just want the easy way out. Give me the easy button that I can just take the shot and not worry about anything else, and eat like crap and not sleep and not focus on the fundamentals and expect great outcomes. And so that's really, to me, where it comes down to putting all the pieces together that I think that depending on the individual, again, is nuance involved here and everyone's different. That's one layer. I like this cake analogy that I come up with. You're baking a cake, okay? And the cake ingredients are nutrition, probably first and foremost, with hormones, gut health, sleep, fitness, stress, toxins, environment, community. All these things are part of this cake, this amazing, beautiful cake. Your cake is now sitting on the drying rack after you're done baking it. You let it cool, and what do you do next? You put frosting on top, right? The frosting is the sexy part, right? Everyone wants the frosting. The frosting is like the peptides and the cryo and the red light and the PEMF and the sauna and the hyperbarics and the plasmapheresis and stem cells. You see where I'm going with all this.
yeah, yeah.
All those are great, and I'm not here to knock them. And that set of hacks has a place and has a role in the right context and nuance. But I'll tell you what, you forget to put the baking soda in that cake, I don't care how much frosting you put on, it's not going to be the same. And so
Yeah.
it comes down to the fundamentals that cake comes first, and then the sexy stuff is great. But you're not going to go buy a can of frosting from the store and just eat that out of the can and think that you're going to get the same results.
I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. I want to ask you this first, and then I want to talk about the Peak Launch Accelerator. I'm doing a series, doctor, about how to make 2026 the best year of your life. The first few episodes were identity, discipline, just all these things that tie into this from a wealth standpoint. Things you got to learn. You got to learn on this stuff. You can't just watch some Instagram guy that tells you, here are the peptides that I take. It's not how it works. If you're not getting your blood work done every 90 days or whatever, you're wasting your time. You don't know if you're actually making progress. So one of the ways, if you're serious, you could be in Sarasota on the 30th of January and get diagnosed. I love, they do blood draw at 7 a.m. That's what they're going to do first thing. And so I love it. I might come up there and just do it, because if you can't tell, I geek out on this stuff. So it's funny that people don't want to talk about, and they kind of dance around, is the sex part of it, right?
Yep.
And how you feel, or erectile dysfunction. And nobody wants to talk about that. Or nobody wants to talk about issues that women have with dryness, whatever. I'm trying to think of the right way to say these things, right? And libido, like on both sides. But to me, this is for like intimate monogamy to me. You're married, you don't want one partner being dissatisfied. That's when you got problems, right? Is the more that you can be in sync and sexually being active in the relationship and having that intimacy. Talk about that. We don't talk about racy things on this show. I don't think that's racy, because I think we're natural sexual beings, and I want to be like my friend and your friend up in Bradenton that's 80 years old and being like a bunny.
Man, it is such an important part of a relationship. That intimacy is actually a marker of your health. People who have sex later in life, they actually live longer. And so it's a sign of cardiovascular health. It's a sign of true longevity. And it doesn't get enough attention. People want to brush it under the rug and not talk about it, but it's the elephant in the room. And I actually just had a consultation this morning here in my center with a guy locally who came with his wife, and he came in for treatment for his ED. He has some curvature issues as well, but it was really ED issues. But what we found going through some of his blood work, he actually had a CRP of 9, which is a marker of massive systemic inflammation. His testosterone was in the tank. He had blood sugar control issues. He was obese. He wasn't sleeping well, wasn't doing any fitness activity whatsoever. The guy was a mess in terms of his overall health. But what got him to come in was the sex. Men are creatures, right? We'll wait till it's broken before we do anything about it. But the sex is what finally got him to come in. And his wife is actually big into functional nutrition. And she's like, I'm trying to get him to eat the right foods. And she knew what she was talking about. And so what I was able to help him recognize is when we optimize the whole human system and optimize hormones and blood sugar control and get rid of the systemic inflammation, clean up his gut, all these other things, guess what's going to happen? The sex is going to improve, right?
Yeah.
It's all connected. And so I look at sexual performance, I believe, is a window into your overall health. And when it's failing, then it's a sign that there's a lot of underlying problems.
I love that. I think I could probably talk to you for hours, but about this audience, this is so important. Go to gapininstitute.com. There's, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 downloads. If you want to know what a peptide is, what peptides do what, because that's the hot thing, right? Everybody wants to know peptides, but you want to talk about hormones, you want to talk about meditation. They've got a whole guide. There's got to be hundreds of pages free. You can just go download them, give them your information, but then don't just download it, read it, educate yourself, and then reach out. I don't care if you live in Iowa, you can be in Sarasota once a year or whatever it takes to have this kind of help, because my granddaughter lives in Kingsley, Iowa. I guarantee there's nobody in Kingsley, Iowa, forgive me if there is, that can do this kind of stuff. And it's so, so important. If you don't listen to anything that I say, please listen to this and get this in order. All right, doctor, as we wrap up, all the things that you've gone through, medical school, and then you saw the light, got away from being a urologist and really saving people's lives and enhancing their lives. And I truly believe that's what you do every single day. What's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
God, I love that question. My immediate thought is who do you want to be? It goes back to the concept of identity. And I love this concept of identity. Ben Hardy, I have a man crush on the guy. He's an organizational psychologist. Here is such great book. I've met him. I told him that in person. That actually he loved it. His book, Be Your Future Self. And I love this concept of who do you want to be? Think of 5 years, 10 years in the future. Who is this person? Who is this man or woman or leader you want to be? And what do they look like? How do they sound? How do they walk? How do they talk? What do they wear? And when you can start to live that identity and be that identity, you become that person. So many people are waiting. I work with a lot of doctors who want to do what I'm doing now. How do you get out of traditional medicine and build a practice that you love? And I'm like, you have to be that future self. You have to be the leader who you want to be. It's not going to just happen. It's not going to just magically happen without you enabling that to happen by being your future self. And so that it's really an identity shift between the years that for me was the biggest difference.
I love that. You know what? I would add to that. To me, what you do is you burn the boats. Meaning, when you go from double XL to XL shirts, the XL shirts they're given away.
That's right. That's right.
And when give the food away in your pantry that you're not going to eat. If you got canned stuff and things that aren't healthy, give it away. Yes, somebody's going to eat it, but like get it out away from you. In that identity, have an autopsy. Like to me, every year I look back and I have an autopsy of the year, right? Like, and kill the things that are bad, whatever it is, kill them. And if you just do that, your habits will change, your identity change, your behavior changes, and your results change. All right, last question. If God came down from heaven, Tracy, had only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
I'm going to follow with Ben Hardy here. I'm going to go with Gap and the Gain.
Oh, I love that book.
Right,
Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy.
That's right. That's right. So for the listener, Gap and the Gain, he talks about how there's the concept of the gap is thinking of where you are now and where you think you should be. There's this ideal of I'm supposed to be here. I should be here. I should be at a different level than I am. Right. And what that does is that creates disappointment. It creates unhappiness. It makes you feel like you're not worthy. Versus the gain is, holy cow, look how far I've come. Look what I've accomplished. Look what I've been able to do. Look how much I have. Look how much I should be thankful for and grateful for. And what that does is that creates a sense of gratitude, a sense of peace, a sense of happiness for what you have. And man, does that propel you forward. And so the gap in the gain is focus on being in the gain and avoid being in the gap.
On my team, I think I went to Dan Sullivan 1992 I think he started in 85 or 88 or something like that.
Coach, yeah.
And strategic coach. And so I went in 1992. First I thought he was full. I mean, I don't have an office. I don't have this. What are you talking about? And I thought he was crazy. But most geniuses that I meet, in the beginning, I think they're crazy. And then I find out that they're not. And he's definitely a genius. But my team, who follows a lot of things that are Dan Sullivan, and Benjamin Hardy was the guy that, really took, the book, The Gap in the Gain, like the little guide was like 40 pages. And then Benjamin Hardy takes his concepts and he expands them and adds the detail. And it's just brilliant the way that they work together. And I love Benjamin Hardy. We tell I'll say, Nick, you're in the gap. And they know exactly what I'm talking about. When we're in a business meeting, it happens all the time. And every day you're going to be in the gap, right? Because it's just the way we're wired. But as soon as you turn around and measure back, you go, wait a minute. I'm in the game. I see where we're going. And we just had this happen right before I came on here. We were talking about a company that we're selling, and we were in the gap talking about selling it. And then I said, well, wait a minute. Let's look at how far we've come on this. And then we got into the game, and then we wrapped up with a really good meeting. So, all right. So, Doctor, tell everybody so it's gapininstitute.com, GAPIN institute.com. What else? Where else can they find you? Where else can they, Instagram, YouTube, anything like that?
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'll tell you, if you go to gapininstitute.com/launch, I have a number of gifts there. As you mentioned, I have an ultimate peptide guide. I have a high performance health handbook. I have a copy of my best-selling book, Mel 2.0. I share a digital copy there as well. So check it out, gapininstitute.com/launch.
I got it all. You talk about identity, but one of the things in your identity is your environment, right? So control your environment, controls your identity, controls your outcome, and your habits. So I'll let you any final famous last words.
So Peak Launch Accelerator, we do it every quarter. Our next one is January 30th, as you mentioned. It's a full day of content, of coaching. We have community collaboration. We do workshops, 90-day goal setting. We have a bunch of giveaways, peptide discounts, a lot of fun food and networking. And it's a great fun day where you get to be around a lot of like-minded individuals. And it's all focused on optimization, performance, and longevity. And, how can I really show up and be the best leader that I can be?
I love it. One last thing, because you just said something. This is my belief. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, but do not, audience, I know you can find peptides super cheap out there, right? I know there's lots of, and they say for research only and all this stuff. You got to get your peptides from your doctor so that they're real. I don't know the right way to say it, doc, but like, I don't buy that crap online. I don't care the Instagram thing. I know triple lab tested, all this. I don't do that. Talk about just the sourcing of peptides.
Yeah, you have no idea what you're getting. If you can buy it directly online with a credit card, you have no idea the quality of the product, the purity. I've heard stories of and studies of heavy metal toxins in these chemicals, or there's nothing in them at all. It's just saline. And so I would not personally, I don't ever recommend anyone buy them from any company online. They're research chemicals only. When we order peptides, they come from a compounding pharmacy, 503 regulated pharmacy, where that there's oversight, there's quality control, there's purity, and that you're actually getting the peptide that is labeled on the bottle. And I just wouldn't trust anything otherwise.
And I'll just say one last testament to that is I've had people where I've said, hey, this peptide, I feel like I'm eating a lot and I'm losing fat. They said, I've been taking that. It hasn't done anything for me. And I said, where'd you get it? I got it at something peptides in so Florida. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of that place. Maybe you should get the real stuff. And it does work because it's working for me and it's worked for 3 other people that I know. So anyway, great points there. Again, I think I could talk to you forever. I really appreciate you coming on. If you're out there, you've made a lot of money. You're making a lot of money. I don't care if you're 30 years old or 25 years old. Get these things checked out. I wish I would have done it, but I was told you don't have to do it when you're young. Yes, you do. So, doctor, thank you so much for being on the show. Audience, we're going to wrap this up like we do every episode with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret. Whatever you think, you will become.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now, let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.